Today I will be discussing about the soil water. In short, what water does in the soil mass, what are the different types of waters which are present in the soils, how to differentiate them, what is their role, what is capillarity, what is Beddoes zone, and how to answer the questions which society is asking, in particular why infrastructure gets damaged, why buildings are collapsing, why roads are not functioning the way they should have. So, all these questions come or they become quite relevant when you see the perspective from the soil water and what water does in the soil system. Sometime back I had talked about the different types of water which are present in soils, and this is where I have given you some hint that there is something known as environmental water, there is something known as free water, there is something known as hygroscopic moisture, there is something known as adsorbed sorbed water, bound water, sometimes we also call it as hydrated water. Now, this is a topic of great interest to the researchers who are working in this subject, and particularly those who are more interested in understanding how the environment causes contamination of soils, and that is the reason nowadays this is being studied quite much in details, and a lot of emphasis is on understanding what moisture does. So, it so happens that most of the properties of the soil are dependent upon the moisture content, and this moisture content is nothing but the soil water. Those of you who are interested in advanced research in this area should refer to soil water characteristic curve. Now, this is the most latest thing in the geotechnical engineering. But for undergraduates, it is not a good idea to start discussing this right away in the class. So, when I say most of the properties of soil, be it shear strength, be it compressibility, be it consolidation, or be it permeability. Now, permeability has different roles to play in different subjects. I think I have been emphasizing upon this, starting from petroleum to the motion of any fluid in the geomaterials to the water, which is of interest to geotechnical engineers. And from here we say that if soils are cohesive or non-cohesive or granular, all their characteristics are bound to change, because the water holding capacity is going to be different. And soil water characteristic curve is nothing but a quantification of what is the water holding capacity of the soils. So, if I talk about the soil moisture, soil water is a general term and soil moisture is a particular term. Soil moisture is valid mostly for the fine grained materials. Not for the coarse grained materials. The first category of the soil moisture is the one which is adhesion characteristics. So, depending the mechanism of adhesion of moisture on the fine grained materials is adhesion. Sometimes we also call this as adsorbed. So, those of you who might get a chance to work in research laboratories, there the terminology used is adsorbed or absorbed. Mostly this is valid for the colloids. And for a quick understanding, colloids is the particle size which is less than 1 micron, alright. Normally we talk about the clay fraction up to 2 microns, colloids are at the 1. So, it so happens that if I take a grain of a fine grained material, this is the soil grain. The moment this comes in contact with water, there will be a adsorbed layer formation. Alright. This is also known as adsorbed water. Sometimes people use this as bound water. Sometimes they also use the word hydrated water. In short, most of the adsorption is because of the surface characteristics of the grains. The surface are hyperactive, if you remember. Their surface area is going to be extremely high, and hence their affinity is towards anything moisture or contaminant which comes in contact with it to adhere it onto itself. Now, in between the two particles or the grains of the soil, we will have free water. So, all this is free water. Sometimes we also call this as gravity water. Sometimes we also call this as a pore water. Alright. So, this is the first time I am using the term pore water. Most of the characteristics of the soils would directly depend upon the pore water, or in other words, the pore water, which is the water which is present in the pores of the soil mass, would be controlling all of them. And henceforth, our focus would be to understand how the pore pressure characteristics control all the fundamental properties of the soils. Adsorbed water also contains sometimes the cohesive water and solidified water. Alright. So, the combination of the two is adsorbed water, which is a fundamental characteristics of the colloids. When you get a chance to work in this sub clay particle ranges, as I was talking about in petroleum industry, normally these type of deposits are quite frequently encountered, where you are dealing with the subfraction of the soil particles which fall in the category of colloids less than 1 micron. Now, if you compare the bound water and the free water, vis-a-vis the free water, what you will observe is that the boiling point what is your guess? Bound water boiling point will be more or less than the free water? It is all bound by the particle, and particle is having a lot of electromagnetic forces. So, this is going to be higher than the free water, alright. So, if I say that these are the characteristics, so if I write like this, is okay. That means the bound water boiling point is higher than the free water. One of the ways to understand the difference between bound and free water would be, if I take a sponge, if I soak it in water, if I take it out of the water column and just keep it on the surface, alright. So, whatever gets drained out because of the gravity is free water, alright. This is not bound by any particle, there is no electromagnetic force acting on this. So, this is just free to follow the gravity. However, the pore water is the one which still remains in the pores because of the capillary action, and this we are going to discuss in details today. The freezing point. Now, what is your understanding? What will happen to the freezing point? Freezing point follows the reverse trend, alright. So, the bound water freezing point is going to be less than the bound water, the freezing point of the free water, because this water is free, follows the gravity, and hence it would get frozen first as compared to bound water. Now, if we talk about the viscosity, these concepts you require in R&D. So, you can't say that these concepts should not be discussed, these are very important concepts. So, viscosity of the bound water is going to be more than the free water. Most of the industrial processes where you form different types of products, they all depend upon this type of series. Then surface tension. So, surface tension also of the bound water is greater than free water. Those of you who might get a chance to work in the field of agricultural sciences, lot of research is going on and lot of focus of interest is nowadays agriculture because of food assurance. The population has increased, everybody is talking about productivity of the soil, and by our human intervention what we have done, we have destroyed the productivity of the soil. So, they call it as a food security. Check it on net how much work is being done internationally. Now, I hope you can realize when I talk about the food security for a country, for a population, these concepts will become very important, because if you have most of the time the free water which is of not much of use, and unless you design the systems, the chances are that this water might be available to the plants freely, but at the same time if the soil happens to be coarse material, it may drain out. So, you do irrigation and water is a commodity, you do not have much water. Question is, can bound water be utilized for growing plants, hydroponics? You go to 5-star hotels, what do you see there? In glass, crushed glass, they are producing plants, is it not? So, these are the plantations which are soilless. That means they may dose some chemicals, some activators, some resins, some zeolites which have a very high tendency to retain moisture, and this moisture slowly diffuses through the root zone. So, this is a big subject. Is this okay? I am not going into the details of this. So, it is the free water which is ultimately going to guide all these properties. So, free water and the powder is going to, which is the same thing, is going to guide most of the properties of the soils. The second classification is, remember this is the first type of water which we talk about, adsorbed. The second one is absorbed water. There is a difference between the terminology which I am using. This is the adhesion or adsorbed, and this is absorbed. Any idea what this would be? So, you take the rasagulla, take it out of the pan in which you are making it, or you have soaked it in the syrup, squeeze it. Those who are diabetic, what do? They will squeeze it, squeeze out all the syrup and then they eat it. So, the free syrup which is equivalent to the free water has been displaced, but still the Rasagolla feels sweet. Why? Because some amount of sugar has got absorbed into the pores, alright. So, this water is the same like that. The wilting point has something to do with the absorbed moisture content, which we with the terminology which we use normally in agriculture engineering. Absorbed moisture content can be divided into two parts, hygroscopic and capillary. Remember some time back when we were talking about the moisture content determination of the soils, I was using these terminologies. In a city like Bombay, where the humidity is extremely high, if I dry a soil in the oven, particularly fine grained material, and if I bring it back to the room temperature, what is going to happen? Because of the surface activity, a layer of hygroscopic moisture is going to surround the particles. So, hygroscopic moisture content is equivalent to the moisture which normally spoils your table salt, correct. So, this is because of the humidity, because of the hygroscopic behavior of the clay mineral or the material which makes it proactive to absorb moisture, correct. Another difference is adsorption is mostly a surface phenomena. Absorption could include surface as well as intermolecular, and that is why I gave you logic. Even if you squeeze out the syrup, Rasagolla is still sweet, correct. So, absorbed moisture will have two components, adsorbed and sorbed. Sorption becomes important when you are talking about contaminants in soil, which is not the scope of the discussion in this class. Hygroscopic is the environmental moisture. Hygro is, try out the word hygro. What is the meaning of hygro in your mobile? Hydrous is water, is it not? So, what is hygro? When you say anhydrous compound, hydrous compound, you understand the difference between hydrous and anhydrous? So, what is hygro? Relating to moisture, simple moisture on the surface. So, if you consider a small particle and because of the humidity in the environment, this particle uptakes some moisture, that becomes hygroscopic. There is a difference. Adsorbed water will have some sort of a energy of binding, clear. This is something which is not going to have any energy of binding. It is just free water. You take the soil, put it beneath a lamp of 40 watt, 20 watt, it will simply evaporate. So, this is not a bound water. This is a bound water, remember, correct. So, when you say bound water, a lot of energies associated with the binding of molecules are prevalent, fine. See, the third type of the water is phreatic water. You must have come across this terminology in your irrigation engineering courses, is it not, where you are designing dams, and when you talk about the storage capacity of the dam and so on. Have you come across this word or not? Phreatic. What is phreatic? Check on the net. Phreatic, phreatic. Which follows gravity, atmospheric, alright. So, suppose if I give you an example, that there is a hill and then this landscape becomes like this. This is the, let us say, ocean or a lake, or it could be a river, all right. When the rainfall occurs, what will happen? Some portion of the rainfall will become runoff. So, this is the rainfall, and some portion of the rain would get percolated, all right. So, this is the percolation. Now, hypothetically, if I draw a plane like this towards the land, this is the land side, this is the water body side. This zone is known as a Vadose zone. You remember we have talked about this. Unsaturated zone. However, this line is known as a phreatic line. I hope now you can understand what is the meaning of phreatic word. Some of you could locate it and exactly. So, what I have done intentionally, I have matched this line with the free water surface. So, this is the gravity water, whatever gets run off, whatever gets percolated, ultimately this will come and meet the phreatic line. This is the gravitational water. Atmospheric conditions prevail over here. So, the pressure all along this surface are going to be, pressure is going to be 1 atmosphere always, fine. Now, we will see how we are going to utilize this concept. So, about the phreatic water,
Sir?
Yes please.
Sir, what is the force in hygroscopic?
What is?
The dominant force.
This is only a surface phenomenon, a thin layer of water which comes only because of the surface activity. Surface activity could be your cation exchange capacity or the surface area. So, you have a lot of parking places which are available on a fine particle because surface is very high, water molecules just come and sit over there, there is no bonding of any type. So, the moment you heat it, the moment you put it in a wind, everything will get blown off.
Adsorbed water also means.
Adsorbed water has energy because this is having the energy of what is known as the binding or the bounding. So, that is why we use the word bound water. So, this water is bounded to the soil particle because of some energy, it could be van der Waals forces. Pressure at the phreatic line is going to be always 1 atmosphere, natural STP conditions, standard temperature pressure condition. So, I am going to talk about phreatic surface. So, basically phreatic surface is the gravitational water, whatever gets percolated ultimately settles down over here because the level of the water has to be maintained, fine. Number 2, on the phreatic line the pressure conditions are atmospheric. This is how you define it because this is, see what is the pressure at this point atmospheric pressure. So, it has to get balanced with this. So, imagine you have in the offshore environment water and ultimately it has to come and meet the ground which becomes a groundwater table. So, the groundwater table also has the pressure conditions same as the atmospheric conditions. Is this okay? Now, concentrate on what I am going to write. The phreatic water is subjected to gravity. Capillary action does not play an important role here. That means by virtue whatever you checked on the net, everything is going to be saturated. So, this is the Vadose zone, this becomes your saturated zone. One of the ways to define the phreatic line is, this is the boundary between saturated soil mass and the unsaturated soil mass, clear. And today after some time we are going to discuss what is the state of stress in the Vadose zone and in the saturated zone. So, then your funda will become very clear. Here the state of stress is going to be tensile and beneath the water table everything is going to be compressive. Is this part clear? Let us begin this, I think then you will catch it up. Number 2, the phreatic water will saturate the pores of the soil, completely saturated situation. Beneath this point, anywhere in the soil mass, the pore water pressure will be more than atmospheric pressure. Have you understood this? So, suppose if I consider a point over here, at point P, the pore water pressure is going to be atmospheric pressure plus the pressure which is existing because of this much column of the soil and water. Another property of the phreatic line is that it tends to flow laterally. Why? After few days, when we will be talking about the seepage in the soil mass, we will realize that the movement of the groundwater is always in the horizontal direction, because permeabilities are more as compared to the up and down. And this is a blessing in disguise. Nature has created a system like this, where the water table will not change in the vertical direction much, but it moves only in the lateral direction. So, one of the properties of phreatic line is that the water moves laterally. Is this okay? So, I will write a condition here. The phreatic water is the gravitational water and the pressure at this point is equal to 1 atm, 1 atmosphere. As a geotechnical engineer, most of my interest should be in this as far as undergraduate or the beginning of the subject or the initiation of the subject is concerned. But later on, I think you will realize that in country, our own country, there are not many places where you have enough water, and the country is having acute crisis of water. That means the Vadose zone becomes more important to study as compared to the saturated zone. But I am not going to discuss this. So, when you talk about the mechanics of the Vadose zone, this fundamental behavior of the soil becomes very important. No, just hold on for a few minutes. As I said, in the Vadose zone, the pressure is going to be because of the capillarity. So, I am just going to come on that. So, by virtue of the basic difference is, anything which is the water table would be either dry. If it is a granular material, water cannot stand there, because of gravity water goes out, or if it is a fine grained material, you remember we have discussed this case earlier also. If this is a fine grained material, capillary action would be there, we will be discussing about this, and hence some portion of the Vadose zone would be either variably saturated or partially saturated or unsaturated. Clear? So, these are 3 cases which we have created out of this. So, this dynamics becomes more important to understand for the present day technologies as compared to this. Yes. So, now the seawater intrusion will start, the density driven flow will take place. So, you have to now sit in my environmental geomechanics course. But it is a good question. So, why this Deccan Peninsula is having problem of drinking water? Because salt water diffuses into the fresh water, alright, and this becomes a diffusive contaminant transport. So, coming back to your point, anything which is below the phreatic line is going to be positively stressed, anything above the phreatic line is going to be negatively stressed, and we will see why it happens.
So how we theoretically compare the freezing point of two material substance?
Two materials. You can do calorimetry. Remember in your 10+2 calorimetry which you have studied, you were talking about the heat of reaction, and if you really want to find out, Vinny, can you answer this question? She is an expert in freezing of soils and freezing of the pore solutions.
So, are you particularly asking about the bound and free water? How can you measure the freezing point?
Yes.
So, very simple thing which you can observe during the experiment is like you remember that whenever phase change is happening, freezing, boiling, the temperature remains constant. So, for a longer duration of time during freezing, the for free water it might be 0, but for bound water it will be like -2, -4. You will see the temperature plateau in that region.
Thermodynamics of the system.
Yeah, and you can use calorimetry also if you want to be very specific and quantify the phenomenon.
Actually, these are the on the basis of practical knowledge. How we can? Is there something so that we can get the difference by any theoretical knowledge or a guess? Basically, what you're saying that it's after the practical experiments. Is there something to guess the freezing point of two substances? Not the freezing, guess the freezing point, but to compare the freezing point of two substances.
What salt does in water when you freeze it? What sodium chloride does to the freezing point?
To compare the freezing point of two substances. Am I right? Is that your question? And how to do this in laboratory? That is another question.
Without doing experiments.
Without, okay. Do you know what it means by freezing? That first of all we have to answer, right? What happens when freezing is happening to the state of the material? Its energy will increase or its energy will decrease.
You are taking out the, you are extracting the energy out of the system, correct? So, this is the only way you can answer this question. This is what he was also asking, that what is the difference between the bound water and the free water and the hygroscopic water? It's only the level of energy which is bounding a layer of water molecules onto the particles. Clear? So, when we said viscosity is high, under what circumstances viscosity becomes very high? High pressures, low temperatures. One of the examples. Clear? So, you can create similar types of situations and then you can justify these answers. Okay. Freezing point decreasing because of addition of salts, because of change of the rheology and so on. It is an interesting question what you are asking, but then it has very elaborate concept. Yeah, anything else?
Just to complete my response, so we will look at, like, we will see how easy it is to extract the energy from the
Any system.
That will govern the freezing point. So if there is some mechanism which will oppose the removal of energy, the freezing
No,
point
energy of crystallization. You should talk about the crystallization.
Yeah. So basically freezing is nothing but crystallization. One form of crystallization.
So why is there a difference in surface tension between the bound and the free water?
Okay, I will answer your question in 5 minutes. All right. So, one of the ways to characterize, now let us go back to the basic capillary model to answer your question and what you have been asking, some of you. Characterization of Weddow's zone. So, by definition, first of all, this is a zone in which capillarity is predominant. All right. You remember the basic concept, there is a small glass tube and which is kept in a water bath. So, this is the glass tube. Normally, we call this as a capillary tube. That means the diameter is going to be extremely small, very small diameter, all right. and this is a glass tube or a capillary tube. Where do you find capillary tubes in day to day real life situations? Not really. So, very good, but then keep this question in mind, you should relate with this answer. The straw diameter is much more. So, a good example of capillary would be pores of the skin. You have gone to a different level altogether. Apart from this, simple devices which you use in day to day life, roots, yes, but that again is a capillary action in the soil. So, I am just asking about a simple device which you use in day to day life. Capillary action. Towel again falls in the same category. Thermometer. Thermometer is a beautiful example of a capillary tube. Alright. So, the moment temperature increases, there is a rise in the temperature. Sorry, the moment temperature increases, there is a rise in the height of the capillary mercury going into the capillary tube. Alright. So, this is a glass tube or a capillary tube of a very small diameter. So, this you have done in your 10+2 physics. If you leave it like this is the water column, free surface, atmospheric pressure, phreatic surface, agreed. Suppose AA. What is the dynamics of the system? The moment you put this glass tube and a capillary will get formed, sorry, menisci will get formed. This is the meniscus. Draw the free body diagram of the meniscus. This height HC is known as capillary rise. Alright. The free body diagram would be something like this. This is a glass tube and this is the meniscus. This is the surface tension. Your question was related to surface tension. This is the contact angle alpha between the water and the glass tube. Glass is of quartz and sand particles are also of quartz, minerals are mostly quartz. So, this alpha can be obtained by help of most of the devices which are available nowadays. They call them as goinometer. In Professor D.V. Singh's lab, they have goinometer where you can measure the contact angle for the capillary action, alright. So, most of the R&D is being done in this context. So, if the diameter of the tube is D, now can you draw the pressure distribution? I hope you understood that why there is a rise in water column in the capillary tube. That means there is a negative pressure which is acting over here, it is a suction pressure, as if the water has been sucked by the glass tube. So, if I consider a point here, let us say point number 1 and point number 2, what is the state of stress at point number 1 and point number 2? If this is the Z at point 1, yeah, this is gamma W into Z. Is this okay? This is positive pressure. Anything which is beneath the phreatic line, atmospheric line is positive. How would you find it out? If I take another small tube which is known as a piezometer. Have you ever seen a piezometer? U-tubes you have seen? So, if you connect a piezometer over here, please understand this concept carefully because this is going to be very useful forever. So, this tube is known as a piezometer. Nowadays, I can put an electronic sensor which will measure the pressure. So, I can measure the pressure. Earlier days this is how the pressures used to be measured. Go to any ICU where doctors measure the pressures of your body, clear, body fluids. So, piezometer always gives positive pressures. Piezo is a sort of a pressure which is atmospherically induced. However, if you keep a tensiometer at this point, normally tensiometers are oppositely designed. This is how the tensiometers would be. It is a tube like this. So, if I keep the tensiometer over here, there will be a drop in water column up to this level, which is Hc. So, a tensiometer measures negative pressures, tension is the word which is used for negative pressures. So, capillarity always gives you negative pressure. Somebody was asking this question, alright. Piezo pressures are always going to be positive. So, state of stress at point number 1 is positive. State of stress, this is suppose if I say normal stress sigma, I will remove point, I will simply say sigma 1. So, sigma is the normal stress. Water cannot take shear stress, I hope you agree. At this point 2, the state of stress would be, there is a drop in water column. So, minus Hc multiplied by gamma W. Is this okay? What is Hc? Can you compute Hc? Hydrostatics concepts you can use. So, what is the force which is acting on the system? If I take components, this will become T cos alpha and T sin alpha will vanish. I hope you understand, because T sin alpha is on the periphery. So, this is not going to contribute. Normally, we define pressure as sigma, normal stress, alright. So, because P1s are normally used at the point. So, this is the normal stress at point number 1 and this is the normal stress at the or point number 2, clear. P1 we do not use. The shear stress we will be using as a tau, but because you are dealing with water, so shear stress is going to be 0. Yeah, this is pressure, correct. Pressures and stresses are same at that point, is it not? Stress is a sort of a pressure, okay. So, this is your sigma 2 which is negative and this is your sigma 1 which is positive. So, T sin alpha gets cancelled all along the periphery of the system. So, if I have to draw equilibrium condition, can I write like this, T cos alpha which is acting on which surface? The meniscus, and because of that the entire thing is getting lifted up. So, T cos alpha into pi d, is this correct? This is the periphery, is this correct, multiplied by T cos alpha, and this is what is balancing the weight of the water column in the capillary tube. So, this will be Hc into gamma W, and what is the volume of the water? Is this okay? So, area into volume, this is the volume multiplied by density is the force. So, the weight of the water which has gone into the capillary tube is pi d square by 4 into height of the column volume multiplied by gamma W. Equate this and what you are going to get? You will be getting Sc equal to 4 T cos alpha, pi d gets cancelled out upon d. Is this okay? T is the force per unit length, surface tension. In most of the cases when you are dealing with the glass and water, alpha is 0. Not a very good assumption. So, nowadays people can find out the alpha value, as I said, you can substitute over here, and if you are very interested in seeing how all this works, you please contact Ganaraj and see in the laboratory mercury intrusion porosimeter, which works on this concept of thin capillary tubes by which we find out the pore diameters present in the soil mass, concrete or coal sample or steel sample, anything. All right. So, those who are interested, you can show them. So, this gets simplified to 4 T upon D into gamma W. Another simplified form of this would be, I will come to that later. Now, very cleverly what I can do, you are asking this question, hello, Hc into gamma W is also defined as UW, but this water is under tensile stresses. So, height of the column multiplied by gamma W would give me a sort of a pressure term. So, this is a pressure. This is okay now. We call this as the pore pressure, and the pore pressure happens to be negative over here. There is one approximation which people have done. They say Hc is equal to 0.3 upon D, and this is in centimeters, where D is also in centimeters. This is a thumb rule equation which has been derived by people. Now, concentrate for a minute, you will understand a lot of geotechnical engineering without much of efforts. The interpretation is like this: D is the diameter of the pores in the soil mass, correct? Smaller the diameter, higher the capillary action. Agreed? Number 1. I can create this D by compacting the soil. So, a loose material, if I compact it, what I am doing? I am reducing the D size. So, the more and more you compact the soil, the capillary action increases. Remember, in your index properties, when we are talking about different types of gammas, there I told if the granular material is standing above the water table, it would be dry. But suppose if it is a compacted fine grained material, the capillaries are going to be extremely active. That is the capillary zone. So, what this indicates is, under the hydrostatic equilibrium, a capillary will show you the height of water in it as Hc, which is guided by this, and it so happens that D is defined as E into D10. A very interesting equation. What is E? So, E is the void ratio, and what is D10? Particles finer than 10% of the mass. So, D10 is the standard material concept or the property which you can get from the particle size distribution curve. This is one of the applications of PSD. Particle size distribution characteristics, if they are known, immediately you can find out what will be the D value, substitute it over here, you get the capillary action. Most of the disasters which are taking place in the country in terms of infrastructure development are because you are not selecting the material properly, number 1. Number 2, you are not compacting the material properly, and then number 3, you are not designing the whole system properly. The entire thing comes from here. You do any type of consulting, this is the first rule of the game. Contractors do not compact. Now, this E into D10 is also known as effective pore size. Or effective diameter also. both. So, imagine if I take the soil, compact it properly, E is decreasing, D10 remains same. D10 is the fundamental property of the material, E is the matrix. Clear? So, heavily compacted systems are going to give you higher SC. What I have to do? I have to take care of capillary rise in most of the practical situations, so that highways do not remain submerged. So, in the coastal areas where you are developing road networks, if you are defining this concept, most of the time the water table will be sucked up to SC value. Is this part clear? Capillary tube. Very good. Oh, excellent, excellent, excellent. Very nice. So, if these are the two particles, I can assume this as D, correct, because ultimately the pores themselves are being assumed as the tube. So, you are right, absolutely right. So, this is D. When you compact them, what is going to happen? This D is going to get decreased. Clear? They come closer. Nice. So, truly speaking, this capillary tube is an assumption that you have two particles of the soils and then you are having water inside because of the capillary action, and then this happens. So, if I draw the free body diagram of the particle, how does it look like? If this is the particle and if this is the particle and there is a thin layer of water on this, let us say capillary water. Have you come across this somewhere in mechanics? So, if I cut it, what is going to happen? This is the grain and there is a layer of water which is nothing but surface tension. So, what surface tension does? It is sort of a rubber band. Put a rubber band and do like this. What happens? The tendency of the rubber band is to bring this back to the original position because of the tension. Exactly same thing is happening. So, same thing is happening over here. So, this is the T, this is the T, surface tension. The more surface tension gets developed, particles have a tendency to come closer to each other. Alright. There are a lot of ways to interpret this. Now, suppose I wanted to introduce this a bit later, but because you asked this question now. So, what is going to happen now because of this? Suppose this is what is going to happen. The particles come absolutely close to each other. At this point of contact, there will be a normal stress. This is what is defined as effective stress. So, please do not talk about the pressure term, alright, hello, do not use the term pressure, we always talk in terms of the stresses. Now, this is the intergranular contact stress which is acting at the contact of the two grains. And what is the root cause of this? Surface tension, clear? So, if I were applying a normal stress sigma on this control volume, this sigma would be equal to sigma prime plus UW. This is the theory of effective stress. So, what we say here is the sigma prime value will be equal to sigma minus UW. Have you understood this? UW is the pore water pressure, sigma is the pressure which you applied externally, and what is getting delegated between the particles is sigma prime, which is what is known as effective stress. This theory was given by Terzaghi. Now, suppose if I ask you to plot the variation of pressure along the length of this tube. So, along the length of the tube, if I ask you to draw the pressure distribution, clear? How this will look like? Any idea? This is hydrostatic pressure. You have already drawn this in your Indian mechanics course. Is this okay? Where this is Z. What about the upper one, upper portion? What is the pressure at this point? We are going to ignore it. So, we will put it as neutral pressure, 0. This is also known as neutral pressure. Coming back to your question, when you apply stress externally, this stress gets transmitted into the pores and pores are filled up with water. The distribution of the pressure in the water is all around and it is equal. So, the net pressure at that point is 0 under atmospheric conditions, and hence we call this as neutral pressure. So, pore water pressure is also known as neutral pressure, unless you increment the sigma value. How this sigma value will get incremented? I started constructing a building and today the height of the building is, let us say, 3 story, tomorrow it becomes 5, 7, 10, 20. So, what is happening every day? Every day sigma is getting increased, clear? So, what is happening because of sigma getting increased? The pore water pressure is also getting increased. As long as there is no way for water from the pores to escape, typical fine grained soils. And then we will discuss quite in detail about consolidation, that will come just before your end semester. Is this part okay? So, now come back to this question. So, what I was talking about is the pore water pressure is also known as neutral pressure. Is this okay? Have you heard this? Why? Because this is under static condition, this is the pressure in equilibrium in the pores unless you create some disturbance. Now, this is what is going to be the pressure diagram here. So, what will be this magnitude? This is negative and this is positive. Where else you have come across this type of a pressure diagram? Very nice. Where? Beams, RCC, correct? Now, what I am talking about here? I have created a beam situation in the soils itself. Initial 2-3 lectures when we were talking about why it is so easy to drive a car on beaches which are wet, and why can't you drive a car on the beaches which are dry? Are you getting the answer? What has happened? What water does? It provides tensile strength to the material, clear? So, under tension also you have so much of stresses which can be negotiated by external stresses. So, the pressure which is getting transmitted because of the moving vehicle on the wet sands on the beach is going to be less than gamma WSC. Beaches and beach sands are notorious for sucking and retaining water in them. Finer the material, come back to this, finer the material, D10 is going to be extremely low. When D10 is going to be extremely low, D is going to be less. Finer the material, capillary action is going to be maximum, clear? So, what I have to do when I am designing infrastructure on the clay soils where the grain size are very small, what I should be doing? I should be putting a layer of cutting off the seepage which keeps on moving up. That is the concept of design of infrastructure in marine clays. Are you following these concepts? They are very simple. I mean, all throughout your life you will remember, you can't forget them, and nothing is to be mucked up. You agree? Yeah.
In the water zone, how the pressure can be linear, because it will be up to a height of for the capillarity, but you drawn the graph as linear.
Very good question and very difficult to answer. So, truly speaking, it is not linear, but for the sake of convenience we are assuming this to be linear. You are right that the pressure would not be linear, you are right, but this is an approximation. So, what you should be doing is you should insert different type of tensiometers all along the column of the soil which is in Veddo zone. If you are so eager, come to our lab, we can show you the most recent sensors which are normally used to measure the negative pressures, but do not get involved in all these things at this stage, but your point is correct. Is okay? So, have you understood the concept of reinforcement of the soil because of the water present in it, and that too under suction? So, suction helps you. Have you followed everything? Any question which you think would you like to ask? The rest of the things are absolutely simple. There is no complication if you have followed this. So, just few conceptual things which might help you sometime in your career. I would like to show you two situations because you are asking about the Vadose zone, and someone from here was talking about the Vadose zone. See, there are normally 4 zones of soils. The ground surface is this. There is something known as maximum capillary zone, or sometimes we also write it as maximum capillary rise. Then we have, I should not show it as with water. This is the capillary saturation zone, and this is somewhere the water table is. This is what I have defined as HC. In some of the books you will find this SC as HC max also, but I hope you can realize that this is the maximum possible height of the water which can be in the tube. So, normally I do not write HC max. Instead, I will try to differentiate between the two by giving this as HCS, capillary saturation zone, alright, and this is the water table. Somewhere here you will be having the bottom of the bottom surface. What are the peculiar characteristics of these zones? Below the water table everything is saturated, here everything is saturated because of the capillary action, here also the material might be saturated, might be partially saturated. From here to here it is a dry state because capillarity has no effect on this zone. So, I will write it down and you might use this information. So, this is partially saturated, with downward percolating water table. This is partially saturated with the capillary water. This is saturated with capillary water. This one is saturated with which type of water? Phreatic water. So, this is a zone, this is another zone. Have you understood this? Ground surface, then there is something known as the maximum height of capillary, followed by the saturated with capillary, then you have free water table which is phreatic. each and every point below the water table is going to be in the positive state of stress. Wherever the capillarity comes in picture, it becomes negative. When capillary action ceases, there is no water, it is a dry condition. There was some confusion related to the phreatic line, is this clear? There was something related to the capillary thing, that is clear? You were talking about something, is this okay? So, first thing you understand is below phreatic line everything is saturated, is under positive stresses, clear? Anything above the water column and where the capillary action is taking place might be saturated, might be unsaturated, and the pressures are negative. Because of suction only the water is getting lifted up from here to here, and suction is being caused because of surface tension. Is this part okay? Absorption again is because of the surface features, and surface features are beyond gravity. Please remember, in grain size analysis, grain size, you know, when we were discussing about the grain arrangement of the soil particles, I was very categorically discussing two things: body forces and surface forces, correct? So, surface forces are predominantly electromagnetic. They come because of the bonding, or they come because of some sort of a chemical which might be sitting on the surface. Is okay? Gravity forces are because of the weight of the particle or weight of the water. There are two ways. The simple example is you take the sponge, soak it in water, just keep it on the table, free water will move out, gravity water will move out. Now, what you should do is apply little more pressure. What happens? Some more water comes out. Keep on applying pressure and squeeze it out completely. Clear? You have expelled out all the water from the pores. Now, the same thing you just dip in a water bucket, the way the maid servants they do mopping. Clear? What do? Cotton, somebody was talking about cotton. So, you take cotton cloth, dip it in water and squeeze out all the water. So, what you have done? You have created enough suction in the pores, clear? And this mop is normally used to clean the dust. All fine particles, they get stuck to this. Why? Already there is negative pressure inside the system. You are getting the point now? So, this is the mechanics which takes place only at the surface of the pores. Adsorption is a physical process. Just to give you an idea about how much the capillary action could be, if I plot HC versus the D10 on a log scale, this is also in millimeters and this is also in millimeters. The first thing is, as D10 increases, HC will drop down. This is HC, this is the line for HCS. Somewhere here you have clays and the magnitude of SC would be 10 to the power 4. Then you have silts, 10 power 3 to 10 power 4. Then you have sands, 300 to 10 power 3 mm. Then we have gravels, 20 to 100 mm. Normally gravels are not supposed to show you the capillary action. This is just to give you an idea. I hope now you can get an answer that why in deserts cactus survives, and cactus can lift water from 100 meter, 200 meter. Suppose if I give you a capillary tube, sorry, HC is in millimeter, or this is HC and this is SCS. You are talking about gravels. Silt is 10 power 3 to 10 power 4. Very rough numbers, so don't just go by what I have written. The idea was to show the trend that as the diameter increases, the SC decreases. I should write this as not as SC, this will be H. You must have done these problems in your undergraduate first year, D1 and D2. Diameter, this is L1 and this is L2, and this capillary tube is kept in the water bath. You remember this problem? And what will be the height of water column in the capillary tube? You agree? You have done, I am sure. So, you can solve this problem. So, try attempting this. Different cases you study and see what governs the capillary action in the tube, whether D1 governs or D2 governs, using the same concepts. This capillarity phenomena is normally used in defining the shrinkage limit of soils. Or in other words, shrinkage is guided by the capillary action. You must have done the laboratory experiment where the soil sample is taken and then you are air drying it. Now, this is how I can idealize this. This specimen is having pores. So, this is the pore and this is the soil skeleton, and this is the center line. So, best way to define shrinkage of the material is, you remember I had drawn this free body diagram of the two grains. What surface tension does? It brings particles closer to each other. Water is under tension, so soil is under compression. Is this correct? What happens is that these pores are filled up with water, and when I am allowing the free evaporation taking place from the soil, this is how the meniscus gets formed from both sides. So, enlarged view would be like this. This is the center line of the sample, this is the meniscus formation and this is the meniscus formation. If I use this concept, because of the water and surface tension, the grains are under compression. So, when evaporation takes place from the soil sample gets compressed and it comes up to the shrinkage limit. By definition, shrinkage limit is the state of the material where air has not entered into the system and it remains saturated. Clear? So, this is the model which can be utilized to show how the shrinkage of the soil mass is taking place. So, capillarities and its application is in determining the shrinkage limit of the soils. Which one? Same model. The more surface tension the water has, it will bring particles together. So, what is going to happen here? You have allowed the evaporation of the water from the sample under slow control condition. So, the more and more water moves out, the more and more suction gets created. When suction gets created, what is going to happen to the particles? They are compressed and hence there is a reduction in the volume. State of stress in the soil mass. Let us start with the simple ground surface, and at a depth z, I want to find out what is the state of stress. Now, this state of stress is normally defined as sigma. If I define this as, let us say, point number P, sigma P. as long as it is dry, sigma p will be equal to gamma dry into Z. This is the state of stress at this point. But suppose if I say that the water table is also here. So, in the first case your pore pressure is also going to be 0 without water. I will not mix it with this now. However, if you have the ground surface and there is a water table, and if I ask you to find out at point P the state of stress, this is Z. So, sigma P here would be gamma into Z, but this gamma is saturated now because the water table is here. Now, if you want to find out the pore pressure at this point, the pore pressure will be again the same concept. You have to put a piezometer here and let this piezometer show the height of rise in water up to Z, all right. So, the pore pressure at this point would be gamma W into Z. So, what is the effective pressure here? This will be gamma saturated into Z minus gamma W into Z. This becomes gamma submerged into Z. Is this okay? I can draw the pressure diagrams also. So, the pressure diagrams would be this is for UW, which is equal to gamma W into Z, and for sigma P also I can plot the pressure distribution. So, this is for sigma P and this is for UW. I think this is what you were discussing. So, I hope you have understood now how to compute the state of stress at this point P and the pore pressure. So, I can plot the variation of pore pressure if I substitute Z, and if I know Z I can compute the normal stress also. The third situation could be when you have a partially saturated system. Suppose if I say there is a partially, so this is situation number 1, situation number 2, situation number 3. Ever wonder why buildings collapse in Bombay city during rains? The answer comes from here. This is the ground surface, and during rains what is going to happen? Suppose if this is the point P, water logging, is this correct? Say Z1 and this is Z. What is your intuitive feeling? What has happened to sigma P and UW? Quickly. Yeah, so do it systematically. So, sigma P will be equal to gamma W Z1 plus Z gamma saturated. Is this okay? This is the overweight, and up to this point this is the whole system, water table is here. So, the whole soil mass is saturated. At this point the stresses will be gamma W Z1 plus gamma saturated into Z. What is the pore pressure at this point? Put the piezometer again. So, if I put a piezometer here, where is the phreatic surface? This becomes phreatic surface, atmospheric pressure line exposed to the atmosphere, clear. So, height of the water column here would be Z1 plus Z. So, that means UW will be equal to gamma W Z1 plus Z. So, what has happened in terms of the effective stresses at point P? alright. So, this will be gamma W Z1 plus Z gamma submerged minus Z1 gamma W minus Z gamma W. When I cancel these two things, do not think that mathematically I am cancelling something. Do you get my point? It is not that mathematically I have cancelled gamma W Z1 and gamma W Z1. What is the physics behind this? This water column is contributing to both the pore pressure as well as the surcharge. That effect goes. So, water logging never creates a problem, because what has happened to effective stresses? Now, gamma submerged, please excuse me, this is gamma saturated, alright. So, Z gamma saturated minus Z, this will be Z into gamma submerged. Effective stress remain constant whether the water table is on the surface or whether it has gone up. So, what is the problem? Why buildings collapse? When water table drops down, and let us try to analyze that situation. If you can maintain the water level up to that point forever, there is no issue. This is the ground surface and the water table has gone down, there is a drop in water table, and I am interested in finding out the state of stress at this point, which is at a depth of Z. This has gone down by Z1. Can you compute now quickly and see what is happening? So, sigma p will be equal to, let us take a simple case of this material as gamma. This is where I can play tricks, because that depends upon the type of soil you are dealing with, granular, cohesive, compacted, capillary action, no capillary action, all those things. Simple case, this will be gamma into Z1 plus Z minus Z1 into gamma saturated. What is the pore pressure at this point? UW. Normal simple cases, granular material is filled up over here. This will be Z minus Z1 into gamma W. Remember, the pore pressure, sorry, the piezometric tube has to be kept here, and this goes up to the phreatic table. So, this is your Z minus Z1. Is this fine? What has happened to the effective stresses? This will be gamma Z1 plus Z gamma saturated minus Z1 gamma saturated. This pore pressure is positive minus Z gamma W plus Z1 gamma W. Z gamma saturated minus Z gamma W we can quickly take care of. This will become plus Z gamma submerged. Clear? Z1 gamma saturated minus gamma W minus Z1 gamma submerged plus gamma Z1. Is this correct? So, truly speaking, this function has become gamma Z1 plus gamma submerged Z minus Z1. What is your intuitive feeling? Z gamma submerged, Z gamma submerged, and here what has happened? You have Z gamma submerged. I can write this as Z gamma submerged plus Z1 gamma minus gamma submerged. Is this okay? So, what is your intuitive feeling? What has happened? What I am trying to prove? This component has got added up with this. Agreed? Effective stresses are increased at a given point. So, if effective stresses increase at a given point, Calcutta Metro, the tunneling is a beautiful example of how the effective stresses are getting developed in the system. Unless you take care of these effective stresses which have got developed, the whole system is going to crumble. So, you remember this is the grain and this is the grain. Because of the thin film of water, surface tension, they came close to each other, and this is your sigma prime exactly. Sigma prime cannot be measured, there is no way. Sigma can be measured and UW can be measured. Now repeat your question, I will answer. Answer to your question is not balancing anything, it gets developed extra in the system. Why? Because of the lowering down of the table, water table. Same thing you are doing in petroleum extraction also. So, the more and more you extract the petroleum, it keeps on going down and down and down and down. The more and more you extract water from the ground, what is happening? It moves down and down and down. Effective stresses keep on building up in the system, subsidence. Cities like Thailand, Venice, Mussoorie in our own country are having acute problems associated with the subsidence of the land. You can't balance it. This is the state of the stress getting developed because of your activities, human activities or natural activities. So, suppose because you are discussing, suppose this was a confined system, alright, and suddenly the confinement got broken, dams. So, what is going to happen? If this gets broken, the water moves out, water table drops down, collapse occurs, alright. So, whenever there is a movement of water table below, drop in water table, this is going to be detrimental. Confinement can get removed in several ways. You had done sheet piling, remember 2 years back what happened in one of the prime localities of Bombay, Times of India first page, clear? Some time back what happened somewhere else in Bombay city. So, confinement gets removed could be because of anything. I may remove the piles are not designed properly, there was a deflection, clear? You are doing underground dewatering and your containment failed. So, these are construction techniques. Your question has been answered. So, it so happens that you cannot do anything with this. So, what I should be doing? Just to wind up today's lecture, pump in the fluids, and that is what Venice is doing. Read the Venice case. So, what they are doing? They are trying to lift the entire city up. What they have done? They have dig out maybe at least 40, 50, 100 deep wells, and what they are doing now in those deep wells? They are pumping in water. Why? Look at this, they have to bring it up. So, the more and more water you are consuming, what is going to happen? This is what is happening. Underground tunneling, Bombay city is having maximum number of tunnels now. Are you aware of this? Very close to IIT there is a big failure. So, quickly give you answer how to tackle with this problem. Tomorrow some of you will become consultants. Is this correct? My job is to tell them the answer. So, suppose if I was doing a tunneling over here and the water table earlier was here, and if I am not careful, what I have done a tunneling and the water starts entering into the tunnel. I have created a situation like this. You were talking about the same thing, lack of confinement. What here has happened is a different case. Because of creating a void, I have allowed water to seep into. Any type of lowering of water table is going to cause this. I can I might be doing pumping also. So, I can install a pump over here, tube wells, and these tube wells are taking out water to irrigate the land or whatever industrial purpose. What is happening? Initially the water table was somewhere here, then it went down to this and this and this, everything will collapse. The same problem hydrocarbon extraction guys are facing. Remember, you are sitting on the top of this in the form of a hydraulic platform, or what to call this as a jack-up platform. So, you are basically sitting on your own grave. It is a very difficult task, and that is why the charges are 1 lakh times more than whatever you get in the onshore industry. Clear? Now, what you are doing? This is the well through passing through your platform, and you started extraction of hydrocarbons. So, what is going to happen? This whole thing is vulnerable to collapse, and this is how the accidents occur. Fine. So, this is the geomechanics. And one more situation, there was an aquifer, let us say somewhere here, alright, this is an aquifer, water table means this is an aquifer, and I punctured it by putting a shaft of a tunnel. What is going to happen? Again same thing, water is percolating through this tunnel, water table lowering down. So, gas extraction, hydrocarbon extraction, water extraction, mining processes, all of them are going to be difficult situations to handle. So, what we are supposed to do? Our job is to tackle these situations.